Well, for more on what's happened in Switzerland, I'm joined now by Don Beyer. He was America's ambassador to Switzerland until last year. Ambassador Beyer, thanks very much for coming in. Give me some sense of the background to this, the rise in the number of immigrants that have gone into Switzerland recently.
You know, Switzerland is one of the very few countries in Europe that still has growing population. It was 70,000 people last year that came into Switzerland, 50,000 in the few years before that. So what you're seeing, the downside of that is ever more crowded trains, more crowded roads, greater demand for social services. The upside, of course, is that they have the workers they need to keep growing their economy.
But it's led to, I mean, and we've seen this over the last few years, right? This sense of a kind of anti-immigrant feeling fueled by right-wing groups within Switzerland.
One of the ironies of this vote, it was only 50.3%, 1.4 million to 1.4 million, was that the people that drove it successfully were in rural Virginia, in the cantons and the villages, where the big cities like Geneva and Zurich voted against the initiative, which is where most of the immigrants actually end up.
So what does this say then to other anti-immigrant groups? And we've seen them, you have them in Norway, you have them in the UK, you have them obviously in France as well. And this is not just a problem that Switzerland is dealing with. This is a problem that other European countries are dealing with. And what kind of message do you think this sends out to those groups?
Well, I think the Swiss government would probably say it sent the wrong message. Half of the Swiss GDP is based on exports, 7 times what the U.S. export per person is. And by far their largest market is the EU. I think Didier Burkhalter, the foreign minister and president, and the federal council don't want to risk jeopardizing these vital trade agreements with the EU.
But it looks like they've already done it. I mean, the EU is already saying today, you know, this is not going to work.
I think a lot of that is the EU basically pushing back to Switzerland. They have up to 3 years to turn this referendum vote into law. And I know the federal council will be trying to do this very carefully, even with the members of the Swiss People's Party, because they don't want to jeopardize the very strong financial position they've had for so long.
Right, but if you are looking at, if you are one of these other anti-immigrant groups in one of the other countries in Europe, who's also, which all of them are wrestling with what to do about immigration, as we are here in the United States as well, what do you take away from that referendum?
Well, I guess they would have to be encouraged in the other nations of Europe. Not my position, but theirs. But one key difference is that probably the most little d democratic, decentralized politics in the world is in Switzerland, where the villages and the cantons get to vote on many different things. So they have a unique position to be able to speak on it. But how that's translated into law will be, I think, what the EU will be watching carefully. Okay,
do you think if this is translated into law, then Switzerland's position and its relationship with the EU, which is this rather complicated set of kind of agreements that it has, changes irrevocably? I mean, that basically means Switzerland can't have those relationships with the EU anymore, right?
Yes, and I think that the Federal Council understands that. This is not a new struggle. For a long time, Switzerland's been trying to figure out how to take advantage of the great interaction with the EU without having to turn its government and its laws over to EU regulations.
Okay, Don Beyer, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you.